In 2025, Intel reported an operating loss of $221 billion, a stark fall for the company that once defined the PC market. In 1968, two engineers named Robert Noyce and Gordon Moore left Fairchild Semiconductor to start a company in Santa Clara, California. They called it Intel, a portmanteau of integrated electronics. They didn't start in a garage. They started with $2.5 million in funding from Arthur Rock, the man who coined the term venture capitalist. For decades, Intel didn't just participate in the computing market, they defined it. In 1971, they created the Intel 4004, the world's first commercial microprocessor. By the 1980s, the success of the personal computer turned the microprocessor into their primary business. Then came the 1990s and the era of Wintel. This was the symbiotic partnership between Microsoft Windows and Intel. Together, they shaped the PC market, solidifying Intel as the dominant supplier of the chips that powered almost every computer on Earth. But the mechanism of their dominance was built on a specific architectural standard x86. This is the instruction set, essentially the language the chip speaks, that became the foundation for most personal computers. For years, Intel's lead was insurmountable. They launched the Pentium brand in 1992, creating a household name for a component most people never actually saw. However, as the century turned, the nature of computing shifted. Intel began a series of expensive experiments. Between 1999 and 2003, they spent $11 billion on an acquisition spree of telecommunications and networking companies. It was a gamble to diversify, but the results were poor. Nearly 40 of these subsidiaries folded or were spun off at a loss. By the 2010s, the gaps in Intel's armor were becoming apparent. They spent another $10 billion on acquisitions, including McAfee and Infineon's wireless business. But while Intel was buying software and wireless firms, the world was moving toward a different kind of power, the AI-driven data center and the mobile device. Intel's struggle became a battle on four simultaneous fronts. First, in the PC market, their Core Ultra line is now facing pressure from AMD and Qualcomm's Snapdragon X Elite. Second, in the server market, AMD's EPYC processors have seized roughly 30% of the x86 data center market, a segment where AMD started from near zero only 8 years ago. Third, in the GPU and AI space, Intel's Gaudi architecture has failed to gain traction against NVIDIA's H100 and B200. And fourth, in manufacturing, they are fighting a losing battle against TSMC, which currently holds a 61% market share in the foundry business. To understand the failure, you have to understand the foundry model. A foundry is a factory that manufactures chips designed by other companies. For years, Intel did both. They designed the chips and they owned the factories. This is called an integrated device manufacturer or IDM, but as chip designs became more complex, specialized foundries like TSMC became more efficient. Intel tried to pivot. Under a strategy called IDM 2.0, they attempted to open their factories to external customers through Intel Foundry Services. This required a staggering capital expenditure of $25 to $30 billion per year. But the transition was brutal. The company faced a tension between its long-term vision and the demands of institutional shareholders like Vanguard and BlackRock, who operate on quarterly reporting cycles. When the results didn't materialize fast enough, the board acted. In December 2024, they replaced the CEO. The new leadership, under Lip Bu-Tan, has shifted towards supply-side discipline. This means making the hard choices, abandoning planned expansions in Germany and Poland, slowing construction in Ohio, and refusing to develop new process nodes unless there are confirmed customer orders. The financial toll of this decline is stark. By 2025, Intel's revenue fell to $52.85 billion, with an operating loss of $2.21 billion. They are now the third largest semiconductor manufacturer by revenue, a far cry from the undisputed king they once were. They are now leaning on the U.S. government for survival. Through the EPYC Act, the government committed $8.9 billion in funding, with $5.7 billion delivered in the first quarter of 2025. This creates a strange new reality. Intel cannot easily abandon its foundry ambitions because it is now tethered to federal subsidies. They've also entered a collaboration agreement with their largest AI rival, NVIDIA. It is a paradoxical partnership. Intel is now in a position where its survival depends on the success of the very competitors that displaced it. The company that once owned the market is now fighting for a place within it.